What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are not here to play school. We're here to talk the Week 5 college football slate, presented by Outlet Liquor, your place to buy a case every Saturday of this college football season. Joined by my brother and co-host, Alex Micah. Are you ready for a fun Week 5 slate this week? Last in September.
I'm ready for any kind of football slate. Are you kidding me? It doesn't matter that it doesn't have to be a fun one. The worst possible college football game is still beautiful to me.
That's fair. I can't argue with that. Can't argue with that at all. We got a good one though. We got a couple good ones. Where do we want? Do you want to start at the top, the biggest game, or do you want to go down the list?
No, we got to build. I think we build up.
I think we got to start right away.
We got to start with it right away.
Yeah.
All right.
We have to. All right. Because it's like if we're booking a wrestling show and we don't know if this match is going to go 20 or 30 minutes, and we need to give it more time. I'm not saying it'll actually be 20 or 30 minutes. I'm saying, you know what I mean? Like this.
I get what you're saying. I feel like we should book this as a Triple H card. You build up to the top.
No, I can't believe you said that. Who are you?
Well, that's the Triple H NXT cards, at least.
Okay.
They were built for level of importance.
No, I think we got to start at the top here.
All right.
I think we do. Sorry, I don't know why I asked you. I should have just started at the top. I should have just done it. Thoughts? Georgia, Alabama.
So this question, I had this thought yesterday, and I wanted to ask you if your opinion. This is the biggest regular season college football game since when? I have an answer in my mind that I think is what it is. I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
This is Russillo earlier this week said the game of the century of the week. That's the vibe you're giving me here with Georgia, Alabama. I would say since like Ohio State, Michigan a couple years ago.
See, I think that's a fair thought.
When Stroud lost in the Big House, that game where it was like Michigan needs to get over the hump, win this game. I think that's the biggest game of the last couple of years.
So that would have been 2021, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad pick by any means.
What is yours?
Mine that I thought is 2019 LSU, Alabama at LSU. Or no, it's at Alabama, at Bryant-Denny Stadium, LSU, the 15-0 national championship team that came in and put on probably one of the greatest football games you're ever going to see in your life, and loaded with stars, loaded with talent, and was the cementing moment for LSU to win the SEC West, kick out that Tua Alabama team, and then obviously they go on and win the national championship. And in the same kind of vein, that was a pseudo. I mean, LSU had to go on and win the SEC championship game, but it was a pseudo SEC championship game and like basically an early playoff game. You could look at this the same way. This is an early playoff game, and even more important now that there's no divisions in the SEC. That's the game I related to. I understand. I get what you're saying. Though.
Could be a rematch later on, for all we know.
Here's the thing with that: when the first time that Stroud lost, though, I think why I didn't think Michigan and Ohio State is because Ohio State still got in to that playoff.
Well, both these teams are still going to get into this playoff.
Well, now that it's expanded, yeah, but
that's the same vibe.
Yeah.
And it was still Michigan beating Ohio State for the first time in how long?
Yeah.
You know, so years and in this era. So that's the one I'll say. I respect you love the Joe Burrow LSU team. So you hold more regard for it than I do in my heart.
I think it's probably like the single greatest overall football team assembled. Maybe. That's a bold statement, but just the amount of talent and all Americans that were on that team, and obviously notwithstanding any of their NFL careers or what they're doing now, but at that moment, I mean, people are going to be like, oh, no, the 2000s Miami team, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about, or what are the 80s Miami teams, or whatever. I don't know, man. It was that was special to watch.
I would say I would still probably give it to the Miami team, so I'll be the old head here. I think it's second or third. I agree. I just don't care. Like that team was amazing, but wasn't happy or sad that they won. I feel indifferent about LSU most.
Well, it wasn't like I was like outwardly like rooting for that LSU team. I was just like, this is a fucking awesome game. And it was like 48-45 and it was just, I just remember that, I mean, the glory days of SEC on CBS that we don't get anymore too. But,
You're not liking the Fowler and Herb Street in the SEC buildings.
I mean, we were getting those games anyways. We were getting Herb Street and Fowler doing that before. Maybe not for the biggest SEC game every week.
Yeah, this game would have been on. This game would have been on CBS last year.
Yeah,
for sure,
100%. I don't like the graphics for SEC on ABC. I think it just looks bad. They try to do something unique. I don't think it looks good at all. I mean, I love Sean McDonough. I think he's good, but I don't know. That's not the point of this game at all. Georgia, Alabama, biggest game of the year so far.
It's not the biggest game of the year. Here's the thing of your game of the century, biggest game, is that there's literally a bigger game. I guess you can say depending on how this one goes. I don't think it's going to matter. I think Georgia and Texas will be the game.
Well, that's what I said. Biggest game so far. It's the biggest game so far. Right. Yeah.
The game of the century of the week. That's why I liked what.
How do you feel about Georgia being, albeit minus 1 point, favorites going to Alabama?
I think they've earned it.
Okay.
And I think I trust Kirby. We know more about Kirby Smart than Kalen DeBoer in these situations, especially in the SEC. They had their letdown look-ahead game last week against Kentucky.
Two weeks
ago.
Both these teams have been off for a week.
Last game against Kentucky, I think it was a look-ahead spot. They're both coming in rested. Awesome. I just think Georgia's better, and I think that Beck's a better quarterback, and I think that's where you get the 1 point favorite. If it comes down to Milroe having to make plays with his arm and Beck making plays with his arm, third and longs, that kind of thing, I'll trust Georgia. I think it's going to be close, and I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be like 20-17, something like that.
I do too. Both these defenses, I'll go a little higher. I think it's going to be like 24-21. But both these defenses are pretty good, and their pass defenses are very good. So it's going to be an interesting battle there. I don't know if I would trust Carson Beck more than Jalen Milroe, to be honest with you, because Jalen Milroe of like last season, those first few weeks where he didn't play good against Texas and then was benched for USF and then regained his starting spot, and then he's looked like a completely different player ever since that moment, and beat this. I mean, obviously, albeit different talent. Same thing for Alabama. Beat Georgia in that SEC championship game, went head-to-head against Carson Beck. We've already seen the litmus test on a neutral field for these quarterbacks, at least. Maybe not the same team. And they both have grown since that time. I just think what Jalen Milroe adds to the game with his legs is so much more vital than what Carson Beck can do with his arm, especially if this game is they're not going to be able to get anything going against these secondaries at all. Then I would take Jalen Milroe and his ability to run over Carson Beck in a close game like this, where it's probably going to be just gross ground and pound football. It's going to look like a Big Ten game more than it's going to be like a flashy SEC game.
Well, the SEC's got their hog mollies too. I just like the Georgia team. I don't know. I know what you're saying about the SEC championship, but that game came down to thin margins too. So it's not like it was like Milroe. I don't know. I haven't fully bought in. I don't know if it's going to get me there with the style that he plays and the way they've looked this year so far. It just doesn't look like it. I don't see the amount of growth that you're saying you see from him, to be honest. And
I think he's much more calm, and I think he's learned how to. I'm stealing a little bit here from Sam Acho, actually, because I was watching this on ESPN and he was breaking down his film. He's much calmer in the pocket, and he's learned how to move the safeties with his eye, which he wasn't doing as much last year, and then his first couple starts the year before when he got in. He knows how to move defenses around, and because of his dual threat ability.
Last year in this game, Carson Beck 21 of 29, 243 yards. Jalen Milroe 13 of 23, 192 yards. So I don't think Carson Beck's out.
How many yards on the ground? How many yards did Jalen Milroe run?
I'll get that for you in a second. Hold on. It was only the Wikipedia stats when you get to ESPN. But so that's not a bad game from Carson Beck, though.
No, but I think that both of these passing defense. I think this game is going to rely more on the run game than people are going to think about.
14 carries for 29 yards is what Milroe ran.
He didn't run that much, but that's not a good sight, is what I'm trying to back up here. Then, but
nope.
Both these passing defenses are good. Alabama's is 15th in the country. 7th in the country. Excuse me. They only let up 115 yards a game, and Georgia is the top-ranked passing defense in the country. So
that's what worries me about this game for Bama.
Yeah,
that's where
I mean, it's fair, but I don't know. And this is the thing. You're talking about hyping up Carson Beck. He struggled against Kentucky. He only threw for 160 yards and no touchdowns.
He did,
and that's against Kentucky, who is not a good team.
They're not a good team. It was on the road. They've done this at Kentucky the last 3 years, so it's like it's something that we've seen before from them. And
so if we're worried about him on the road at Kentucky, we should be more worried about him on the road at Alabama.
I'm not worried about him on the road at Kentucky. Those games have happened the last 3 times at Kentucky when he wasn't quarterback. There's something about Georgia going to Kentucky that is a trend right now with those Stoops teams and the smart teams. Look at the last 3 games they played. It was like 16-9 or something, 16-13, 13-12, and like 9-6 or something crazy like that. There's something weird that happens in Lexington. I've seen Carson Beck win a lot of games. I'm not saying, listen, this is a 1-point spread. I'm not going to like sit here and be like, there's no way Bama's winning. There's no shot. And Milroe could have. Maybe tomorrow's the game where he changes it and proves me wrong. Here was Milroe's stats 2 weeks ago against South Florida. 16-26, 194, 2 touchdowns. That's almost identical to what he had in the SEC title game. So that's what I talk about with the growth that I don't know if it's there. In this game, 12 carries, 2 yards.
Yeah, the 12 carries, 2 yards is weird. But he did have 2 touchdowns. He's had 2 touchdowns in every game, rushing at least this year. I don't know.
We're just on the other opposite sides of it. You're picking Bama. I'm picking Georgia. I think that's where we're at.
I'm gonna pick Bama. I think Jalen Milroe is gonna. I think he's gonna be able to do more than Carson Beck.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Maybe. I've believed in Carson Beck this year, coming into the year, and I'm not gonna turn on it now 3 weeks in just because of the game at Kentucky. You were
looking at the USF game. You got to look at the Wisconsin game.
Yeah, I said it against USF.
Okay, well that wasn't the most recent game they played.
I know. I wasn't talking about the Wisconsin game. I was talking about the USF game.
Okay, well
that's the game. That's the game where Bama struggled until the 4th quarter. They put up 28 points. That was the game that Bama they dominated. Wisconsin sucks. But that's all that showed me.
Well, I know. I just feel like you're talking about 12 carries, 2 yards. Most previous game that we saw him play, 14 for 75, 2 touchdowns, 12 of 17 for 196 and 3 touchdowns.
I know. Good for him.
USF is just weird. I don't know. All right, but I don't even know if I want to pick Bama.
Hey, listen, you got to come in with your convictions here.
I wasn't even really set to pick either way, but I just was thinking about Jalen Milroe is just going to play better.
I don't know.
I'll stick with Bama.
I'm not as high on Milroe as you. I think that's all it really comes down to.
I'll stick with Bama. Okay. It's fair to say about Kalen DeBoer.
Ryan Williams is awesome too. Love that guy.
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I'm giving it to DeBoer. I'm gonna give him. He is a good coach. We haven't seen what he can do yet in this big of a moment. But I mean, we saw what he did at Washington, and you could argue that's with like lesser talent. Now, obviously, that team is very talented, and they have a lot of guys who went into the draft. But you saw what he could do before, and made it to the playoff. And if Michael Penix wasn't like a 27-year-old whose body was falling apart, who knows what happened in the national championship game? So I mean, they had that big game beating Texas. So he's a good coach, and he can get these guys riled up. So.
We shall see. I don't think that team with Nick Saban was beating Michigan last year. That Washington team, they were just it was a bully ball game.
Yeah,
but he's got the bullies in Bama.
Yeah,
so we'll see. It's gonna be fun. It'll be a fun game, fun atmosphere. The first real test for Herbie and Fowler for an SEC game because they've had some decent matchups. Whatever, Tennessee, Oklahoma is okay, but like I think Oklahoma is just gonna be a mid team.
For them calling, are you worried about them calling a game?
No, I'm just excited about it.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
excited to hear them. I'm not worried about it. I'm just
Okay,
excited.
well, you said you're their first real test. I was like, oh.
It is. I mean, for SEC fans, it's their first big game in the SEC.
Yeah,
It's not. There's
true.
nothing else they've had. I mean, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, A&M's going to be mid, and then Notre Dame fouled up, losing to Northern Illinois. Like this is marquee matchup. I'm just excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I think I will say my controversial opinion is Herbie split himself too thin. I feel like he's lost his fastball on both broadcasts because he can't focus on one thing.
Oh, I don't agree.
I do.
I think it's more so he just has to pick up the slack for Al Michaels on Thursday night games, so he's not.
Listen, if Al thinks that game sucks, he's just done. And last night he thought it sucked and he was done. He said, I don't care about this football game.
He definitely didn't. Nice shout out from Herb Street though. He's just like Devin Singletary went to FAU. Just talking about where the guys went to college.
That's what I mean. I don't think he knows enough about the NFL to be calling this game.
It's highly possible, but I mean that's the thing. Just bringing that insight if you know what you know of these guys from college and how they were as a player then.
Yeah, but Devin Singletary, he's been in the league for 6 years. I don't need to know what he did in college.
He ran for 32 touchdowns. That's what he did in college.
That's true.
In a season.
Anyways, all right. Well, I'm picking Georgia 20-17.
I'm picking Bama 24-21.
All right. It'll be fun. I'm excited for it. All right. We got 3 other big games this Saturday to get into. Illinois at Penn State going on at the same time as Georgia and Alabama on NBC. Hey, no, that's great. This is why you have multiple screens. It's for a night, college football night like this. Illinois 4-0 coming off their biggest win of the season at Nebraska. Talking major junk this week about the Penn State crowd, said that the Nebraska Memorial Stadium was more intimidating.
That apparently was taken out of context, evidently.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Why was it out of context?
That's what I saw. I saw a thing that apparently that wasn't his full quote. I don't know. Whatever it is, they got enough bulletin board material.
Maybe a whiteout, maybe not. Mostly whiteout, I would assume.
I mean, whiteout energy is what it is. It's supposed to be.
Why do they have to do this? Why does it have to be?
Because it's already. I think it's like it's not like that. They can only have one whiteout a year, but it's already. They have that game selected, and then it's like I think they have like stuff printed up for it, and it's all this like marketing that goes to that game that's already selected as the whiteout game, and so they can't just change the date of it. But it's like why? Like if you have any night game at Beaver Stadium, why not do this? Honestly,
that's a great point.
So
well, let's see how the whiteout energy comes through. I'm sure it'll look. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be fine. Look great there. Are you worried as a noted Penn State fan about this Illinois team? 19.5 seems way too high.
19.5 does seem way too high. I'm not that worried. I don't think they're gonna blow them out. I don't think it's gonna be a 20-point win. That doesn't seem right. I thought the line maybe should have been like 10.5. Because I do think Penn State is like just a better football team, and this is gonna be a nice test for Tom Allen's defense, legitimately, who has too much of a gravelly voice. And that's why he has to let go of play calling duties.
Yeah.
So to Dan Connor. But Illinois has Pat Bryant, who has 309 yards and 6 touchdowns on the season already. Leads the Big Ten. And he's second in the country for touchdowns, only behind Nash out of San Jose State. So that's going to be the biggest test for this secondary. It's a young secondary, too. The corners are a little bit more experienced, but at safety they are, especially without Kevin Winston Jr. being there. But, I mean, if they can shut him down, then I would feel a lot better about this defense. And we need to see a big step up from this defensive line, who only has 4 sacks so far on the season. Illinois' offensive line has led up 7 sacks already on the year. So Penn State needs to try to eat and get to him. And Abdul Carter, who's supposed to be this, generational talent, quote-unquote generational. I don't like using that word that much, but this is
look at
great.
you. Look at you.
I know. I shouldn't say that. Who's supposed to be this great talent at edge, and we saw him at middle linebacker. He was great. This great talent that moved to the edge, to be an edge rusher. He's going to be a first-round pick. He only has 1 sack so far on the year. He's not getting home. So, and if they can put pressure on Altmaier, this is the same Penn State team that picked off Altmaier 4 times in the same game last year in Champaign.
It's true.
So, I mean, he has no picks on the year so far. It's really going to come down to I have all the faith in the world on the offense from what we've seen with Kotelnicki so far. And these running backs are being explosive. Singleton much more than Katron, but we already knew that. And Drew looks completely poised and extremely professional, and he's playing the best football we've ever seen out of him. So I'm not worried about the offense at all. It's more so, can the defense actually like step up and be what they're supposed to be? And I talked about it on the doc when we were looking at this. Last year they were a top 5 unit or one. If at that, it was them and Michigan, Ohio State. Top 3 units in college football. Right now, they're like a top 20 unit. They're not playing at that elite level that we've seen out of them the last few years. And that's a new coordinator and everything, but I feel like this is the biggest test for them. They need to make this move now and make this step now. This is where the defense needs to show up.
Yeah, they definitely got to get home. Altmaier, that's a pretty impressive stat line. The 70% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, no picks. The running backs are good. Bielema wants to smash you in the mouth and get off play action. So it's going to need to get pressure on him. And yeah, the secondary is going to have to make some tackles in the open field and everything else. A lot of coverage busts last week for Nebraska. So you hope that you don't see those, but we've seen those from Penn State defense. So I'm bullish. I'm not bullish on a minus 19.5, but I do think it'll be it could be like a 31-20 type of game.
I think, and I saw
I do think the offense will move the ball efficiently. The way Allaire has played this year, and like you said, and the way the offensive line is and everything, they're going to be they can only get in their own way offensively. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not saying that Illinois' defense isn't good either. They have 11 sacks on the year, which obviously better than Penn State's, and they've caused 10 turnovers on the year already. But I just think they haven't faced an offense that's as capable as Penn State's is really what it comes down to. And we saw these last few weeks, Penn State's can, as long as they don't get in their own way, they're pretty unstoppable from what we've seen. And stop doing stupid gadget shit with Bo Prabilla for whatever reason. Driving down the field.
Why does James Franklin love having backup quarterbacks have a package? Because you can't say this is Kotelnicki. This is a James Franklin thing at this point.
It was a Tommy Stevens thing too.
And Will Levis.
I don't remember him doing it as much, but yeah,
he did it quite a bit running the ball. He was running a lot.
And that's fine. If they want to bring in Bo for a run, that's completely okay with me because he's got a good burst. He's been able to break off long runs before. We've seen it. But why are you having him throw the ball? Why is this what you have Drew Allaire, who is this 6'5", 240 pounds, he might not be 240, but 6'5" quarterback with a great arm, and we've seen it this year already. Why are you doing these dump offs? I don't know. And to Tyler Warren, though, who legitimately may be the best tight end in the country, and I think that's just buzz is just going to keep on building for him as he just keeps on showcasing. I mean, he had over 100 yards last week, or close to 100 yards. He threw for a touchdown. He caught a touchdown. He had a 12-yard rush. I mean, he was doing everything for that Penn State offense. And he's just exciting to watch.
Yeah, he is. He's going to be electric in the NFL as well. Just keep churning out tight ends from Penn State.
It would be third straight year that Penn State has a tight end drafted.
Yeah, Todd McShay loves Tyler Warren. Has him as a first round grade. He's one of his favorite tight end prospects ever. He said a couple weeks ago. So that's exciting.
Yeah, he is. Leads the team in catches and touchdowns, or tied for touchdowns and receiving. Leads the team in catches and yards as a tight end. So
that's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
That's absurd.
I would think I'll go 34-20. I'll go 34-20.
All right, so we're right about the same. I think that I really like this Illinois team, and I think that they could. How far do I want to go with this? I don't know. I'm thinking about it, Mo. I'm thinking about going crazy.
At picking Illinois, or
no, not in this game. I think they lose this game. They play Michigan at home. I think they could beat Michigan. They go to Oregon. Probably lose that. The rest of their schedule, Mo, they play Purdue, Minnesota, Michigan State, Rutgers, Northwestern. That Rutgers game could be tricky, but they could be a 10-win team.
They could be.
And that would be a playoff contender, hanging around the teens if they're a 10-win team, Illinois.
They got a pretty easy first year into the Big Ten. or with the new look Big Ten. They've been in the Big Ten, but
Going to Oregon is their big.
going to Oregon and then obviously going to Penn State. Those are two tough, on the
those
road
are tough
games.
matchups. And
But don't have to play USC. Don't have to play Ohio State this year. Playing Michigan, but Michigan isn't. I mean, they obviously had a big win last week.
Getting them at home is huge. Getting them at home is huge.
Which I mean, I guess that's a trade-off because they're coming to Beaver Stadium and going to Eugene. But
so that's interesting. I think this team's gonna be really good at worst, like an 8-win team, but I think 9 to 10 is very possible. Who knows? I can't wait to see how it ends up breaking out and what like the playoff picture looks like by the time we're at the end of the year with those bottom seeds and who's going to be hanging around there, because it's going to be a lot of teams. It's going to be they're going to fill that bubble up every week in those college football ranking reveal shows and make it dramatic, and I think they could be one of those teams. Truly.
How about as we're talking about could be one of those teams, how about Army 4-0 for the first time in 30 years?
Army would be nuts. That would be insane if they win the American. I mean, Army and Navy right now, both undefeated.
It's kind of crazy.
What if one of these teams? I don't know. Yeah.
How about the fact that Army Navy also they play each other special every year. It's the week between the conference championships.
Yeah.
And like the start of like the bowl season. And that's also like it could be also like a de facto like AAC championship game partially too.
Pretty much.
Because both these teams are just cooking. It's great. It's fun.
It's awesome. Well, wait, isn't it after? It's after the championship games, right?
Is it after? I can't even remember.
I'm pretty sure it is. So how does that work if they're the championship? If they're supposed to be?
Do they play each other just back-to-back weeks?
That'd be nuts.
I honestly don't know.
That's weird.
Let's see. 2024 college football schedule.
What happens if Army and Navy play an AAC championship? This is great right here.
I'm looking. So week 12, week 13.
So apparently they can. Oh, it's not an AAC game.
Oh, okay.
And so they can play it no matter what, and it doesn't count towards the standings or the college football playoff. So everything is set, and then Army Navy just happens.
Okay.
So I like that.
Fair.
That's fair.
That's good.
So they play 13 games then, or only 11? And they probably only can do. I don't know what the schedule looks like, but yeah, they probably only play like 8 conference games or something.
I'm looking right now. Let's see. They play. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
this is your
10,
Army
11.
Aside
they play 12 total games. They don't get an extra game.
Gotcha.
And the Navy, and they obviously because they still play Air Force. So.
Yep. Okay. Well, I like it. Well, yeah, Army and Navy, if they're undefeated at the end of the year, maybe a playoff, maybe a back-to-back conference championship Army Navy game. That's what we're hoping for here.
That would be amazing.
That would be something. All right, let's cruise through these last couple of games here on our big games of the week. 4 big games this week that we're talking about. Let's go. We'll just go full descending order here. The Louisville Cardinals, who for some reason again this year, everybody's like, oh man, Louisville, it's so surprising. Their defense is so good again. Like the offense is getting by, but the defense has been really good. Like this is the same shit they did last year. Why did everybody think that they weren't going to be? They're the same team that they were last year, the Louisville Cardinals. And didn't they, I believe, last year, they beat Notre Dame, right?
They did. They beat Notre Dame in Louisville.
In Louisville, yes. But that's 6.5. I'm kind of loving it, man, because of that, because they have the history and this team's defense is nasty. And you know how I feel if you've listened to this podcast, and Alex knows how I feel about Riley Leonard. I don't think he's going to do nothing against this Louisville team. No. So really it's just up to Louisville to put points on the board, which admittedly has been a struggle for them for the last 2 years. But this year so far, they've been good. Against, albeit not great competition, but against Georgia Tech, 31 points, solid. So we'll see what happens in Notre Dame. What do you think about this game?
I'm kind of thinking the same thing as you. I mean, I feel like it'll probably be close. Their game last year was close. I don't remember the exact score. But yeah, Louisville's defense is great. the big thing that Notre Dame relies on is the run game. Jeremiah Love is the running back, and Riley Leonard. They both have over 300 yards rushing. Louisville's defense is only letting up like 88 rushing yards a game. They're one of the top units in the country. It's kind of crazy. We're picking like multiple of these games, and it's all really just about the defense and what the defenses are going to do.
Yeah,
these first 3 games. But I mean, if Louisville can just, stop them. Notre Dame hasn't been putting up crazy numbers besides that Purdue game, and Purdue might just be really, really bad that they were putting up. They got those numbers put up on them. So I would lean towards Louisville. I think it's fun. I mean, they're a fun team, especially in the ACC, where it's kind of like Miami at the top right now, but they haven't really played anybody yet. So what do we even think about them? And then like everybody, I mean, Clemson battling back, but they already have 1 loss on the season. So it's like, what do we really know about any of these teams? And if Louisville was in the ACC championship last year, I mean, they might just be running it back, honestly. So,
exactly. And the ACC is really, who fucking knows? I think Clemson, honestly, though, I think Clemson might be a wagon and just ran into a buzzsaw Georgia team week 1 and is going to run through this conference. But the rest of it, who knows? I mean, Miami has obviously been awesome to start the year. So they're probably, but I don't want to crown, I know Cam Ward's looked awesome and everything else. I can't crown Miami in September again.
No,
I've been beaten too many times. And honestly, I know my Virginia Tech pick is for the playoff, not looking good right now, but we're taping this before. Now I tried to avoid this earlier, and we restarted recording, and here we are. Yes, we're recording this Friday night. I don't know what happened in that game right now. As we're recording this, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia Tech wins that game though. And they have to go to Cal next week, which we've seen how good Cal has looked to start the year.
Scrappy communist Cal team,
and then
as their admin likes to say. Yeah,
and they're at Louisville, so it's a tough. This is the 3 weeks where I'll buy into Miami or not after these 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But Louisville and Notre Dame, it feels like a game where Riley Leonard, I just don't like him as a quarterback, and it's going to be a defensive game. And if it comes down to it, I think it's close enough where you have to take the spread with Louisville. Prediction-wise, though, Mo, I think I'm picking Notre Dame to win like 16-14. That's what I'm going with.
See, honestly, I think if it's a close game like that, I'm picking Louisville. And I think that's what it's going to be. I mean, 6.5 point spreads at home, so that's not that crazy. I just think Louisville is going to be able to shut down Riley Leonard. We saw it happen to Riley Leonard last year. He had that great week 1 game where they beat Clemson. There was a defensive touchdown, all this stuff at home. And then he ran into a stout defense that Notre Dame had last year and couldn't do anything and lost and got hurt, actually. And then nothing really happened for him. And I think actually Duke lost. I think he finished the Notre Dame game, played Louisville, same defense, got hurt.
Yeah.
And then didn't finish out the season and then has to transfer to Notre Dame. He's like, I got to play these guys again. And I think that's what holds Notre Dame back these last few years is they're just going to the well on these ACC transfer quarterbacks who are average, and it's not going to help them. And Louisville is actually just like homegrown, built this great team all around. I shouldn't say homegrown. I don't know about every single one of their players. But from what we've seen in the last few years, I'm picking Louisville. I'm going to go 21-14.
All right. I like that.
Last year, the big thing for Louisville, though, was that they had Donovan Mitchell and Jack Harlow at the game.
That's true.
They don't have that this year, so I don't know. We'll see.
I thought you were just gonna like break out some guy, Donovan Mitchell. I'm like, I have never heard of a Donovan Mitchell on their team.
No. The Donovan Mitchell was at the game. Yeah. The
Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. That'll be a very fun atmosphere in South Bend for that game.
It should be.
They know that's a big game. Let's get into our last one here as we wrap up. At noon on ESPN to start your day off. There is another fun game with Arkansas and A&M in Jerry World. Is always a good time.
Always exciting.
So lock into that. But Oklahoma State at Kansas State, the Big 12 on display here. Oklahoma State coming off a loss last week against Utah in a close game. It was a great football game, but a defensive struggle. And Kansas State coming off a loss, not a great football game, getting blown out by BYU, who's looking pretty good to start the year in the Big 12.
They are.
So how do you feel about this game? It is in Kansas State, so that obviously is helpful for the Wildcats getting back home for this one. But at least for me, my lean is going to be the Cowboys in this one. I've just liked what I've seen from them so far this year. But what do you got?
I agree. And it kind of goes to the fact that they just have the more experienced quarterback. Alan Bowman is very, very experienced. He's been in college football. It's his 7th season now, and has looked good this year. He looks like,
a lot of experience.
A lot of experience. He's looked good, and he's doing what you want like this older transfer guy to do. He can throw the ball really well. Obviously Utah just has amazing defense. I think that's what kind of that they ran into the struggle against Whittingham last week. But he's looked really good. That's what that story of this game has been for Oklahoma, or this season has been, is that they're like have a high-powered throwing offense, which obviously they've had in the past before. And the run game has been so-so. But I think we're going to see a big step up from Ollie Gordon, actually. Because I was looking at his stats from last year, and obviously he won the Doak Walker Award and was this, prolific running back last season as a sophomore. His first 4 games were kind of like timid, nothing really crazy. And then he broke out and had a big game, and then he had this huge stretch in the middle of the season, and that was when they went on that big winning streak. And I think we could see that coming out of him again soon. He had 120 yards against South Dakota State week 1, and then hasn't really done anything since. Has only had like 40 to 50 yards, only averaging 3.5 yards a carry right now. I expect, honestly, him to have his like season-defining moment. He's gonna have his big breakout.
Okay.
So that's what I think is gonna happen in this game. And I just think you got to trust the more experienced quarterback than Avery Johnson at Kansas State, who is a true sophomore, is obviously uber talented, can run really well, has a good arm, but just makes the dumb, I shouldn't say rookie because he's not a rookie, but just the dumb young quarterback mistakes. Saw it a couple weeks ago, actually, where he ran out the clock at the end of the half instead of just trying to throw the ball away and they could get a field goal attempt. He just scrambled around and kept on running and then ran out of bounds after like 5 yards and didn't realize that the time was gone. It's like simple stuff like that. And he threw some really bad interceptions in Provo last week against BYU. So I just think it's noon and it's home, but I just go with more experienced quarterback, more experienced team.
Yep. That's where I'm with you too. I'm going. You have a score?
Give me a second. You keep on going. Let me think for a second.
I'm going 34-23.
Okay. I'll go 28-17. 28-17.
Yeah, we're about the same thing though. I think it's a 10-point game. I don't know. I just like this Oklahoma State team, and they really impressed me last week against Utah. It's a tough loss at home, whatever. Like being at home sucks more about it too, but that's a really good Utah team, and they played with them, tit for tat the whole game, and even having a strong finish there in the fourth quarter. So I was impressed by Oklahoma State last week, and I was really hoping on K-State, like, hey, we knew it was going to be juiced up in Provo, late game, like an 8:30 start local. So they were hyped up for that game, having a ranked team come in. But this BYU team, maybe they're just for real, and that's what it's going to come down to, and they're going to be a real force when we're talking about the Big 12 by the end of the year. But you thought Kansas State would, it would be a close game at least, not getting
right. And it was just they got just demolished by Jake Retzlaff, who has a great hockey name, who's playing quarterback for BYU there. I don't know. I mean, and then the thing that's going to come down to Oklahoma State's defense looked better last week for most of that game. Obviously, they let up some big runs towards the end there because I think they were just getting tired. They were getting gassed.
Yeah.
Their defense hasn't looked great, which is kind of surprising from a Mike Gundy defense. But they're letting up a lot of yards on the ground. So that's what is going to be more so than anything else for Kansas State, is if they can get the ground game going, then who knows? We might just be completely off with our predictions.
It's true.
If they can just control the game. They have a good running back in DJ Giddens, who has the third most yards in the Big 12 right now. So it'll be fun. It's going to be a fun noon game between two Big 12 teams who still are in shape, whoever wins this game, to compete for the Big 12 championship against Utah. I think is the presumptive favorite that we should stick with.
I would think so.
I don't know who's going to take Utah down. Maybe it's going to be BYU. We'll take Utah down.
They could be. I think that game is in. I just had it up. It is in Utah. Yeah, so that's beneficial for the Utes there, not having to go to Provo at all. Utah does look like a force right now, and they always do. This is what they do every year now with Kyle Whittingham, and they are lucky that was their toughest road game. Really, they're two ranked opponents the rest of the season. BYU and Iowa State they get at home. They go to Colorado, depending on how tough you want to think that is. But I mean, UCF at the end of the season could be a tricky one. But
UCF is looking good right now, and
they are.
But
We'll learn a lot about them against Colorado this week too.
Yeah,
Another
I was
big
just saying,
game.
a team that hasn't really played anybody yet, so we don't know what to think.
That's
about
what
them.
interests me the most about that game is that we don't really know like Colorado. We do know a little bit about Colorado because regardless of the nature of that win last week, that's a big win over Baylor to get up to 3-1, and now this will be a good test for them in Florida. UCF plays at Florida next week too, which will be an interesting game.
That is interesting.
Going to be a fun slate of games this week, though. Shout out to our sponsor, Outlet Liquor, your place to buy a case every Saturday this year or whenever you want.
Any day that ends in a Y, go get a case.
Go get a case. Have a great day. Good luck on your bets. All that good stuff. It's a great slate of college football. Enjoy your Saturday. Have a good day.